The story of the Taniwha of Wellington Harbour. In ancient times in Aotearoa there was a beautiful lake in which there dwelt two monstrous Taniwha. Their names were Whaitaitai and Nake. Whaitaitai was an easy-going Taniwha. He liked to cruise slowly around the lake, stopping often to eat the fat, juicy eels at Te Awa Kairangi river mouth. After his meal he would stretch himself out to sleep in the sun on Pito 1 beach. Nake, however, spent most of his time speeding around the lake as fast as he could swim. His favourite game was leaping over Matui Island and doing spectacular belly flops. One day Nake said to his friend,
Ihoa, I'm bored. I want to leave this lake and journey into the great ocean. Will you come with me?
Whaitaitai laughed.
You must be Porangi. There's no way to swim out of this lake. It's surrounded by land.
And he laughed even harder. Nake became angry.
I'm not Porangi.
He snarled.
I'm big and strong, and I will break through the land to the sea.
Whaitaitai stopped laughing.
What if you kill yourself, Nake?
He hissed in fear.
I would be alone.
Once I have gone, you will be alone anyway.
Replied Nake.
Ihoa, come with me.
No,
Held Whaitaitai.
this is our home.
The two Taniwha began to argue loudly, their tails slashing back and forth, creating gigantic waves that crashed upon the shores of the lake. Finally, with a cry of frustration, Whaitaitai turned his back on his friend and swam away. Snarling with annoyance, Nake flicked his long tail and began to swim in great circles around the lake. Faster and faster he went until he had reached full speed. Pako, Nake's powerful body crashed into the land, shattering earth and rocks in all directions. As the land crumbled about him, Nake forced his way through to the vast ocean. With a triumphant roar, he surged up out of the water and, turning his head, he looked back towards Whaitaitai. Then, with a joyous flick of his tail, he turned and was gone. As Nake's roar echoed around the hills, the sea surged through the jagged gap he had created, changing the lake into a harbour. He realised that Nake's leaving had changed everything.
I should have gone with him.
Moaned Whaitaitai.
Maybe it's not too late.
Gingerly, he swam towards where Nake had broken free.
Oh, I can't swim through that.
He wailed in horror. As the days passed, Whaitaitai's sorrow deepened. He tried to cheer himself up by swallowing an enormous meal of slippery eels, but it didn't help. He tried to sleep in the sun on Pito 1 beach, but since he was facing the gap where his friend had broken free, that only made him sadder. As he lay there, an astonishing idea crept into his mind.
I'm as strong as Nake. I can make my own way to the ocean.
Rolling himself into the water, Whaitaitai began to swim towards the small bay to the west of where Nake had left.
I'd better swim faster.
He puffed as he approached the land, but at that very moment he felt his puku scraping on the bottom of the harbour. Whaitaitai did not understand that a harbour has tides, and since the tide was out, he suddenly found himself stuck. He tried to wriggle backwards, but the more he wriggled, the more he sank into the sandy floor of the harbour.
I must break free.
He thought desperately, arching his back and throwing back his head, but it was no good.
I'm stuck.
Wailed Whaitaitai.
Help me.
For many lonely centuries, Whaitaitai lay beneath the waves, imprisoned in his sandy seabed, feeding on any fish that swam close enough for him to snap up. When the famous Maori explorer Kupe discovered the harbour, Whaitaitai tried to call to him, but Kupe heard nothing as he and his people sailed away across the loud slapping waves. More lonely years passed, and Whaitaitai dreamed of Nake returning. One day his heart stirred with hope as a long shadow crossed the sea above him, but it was not Nake. It was a fleet of waka carrying the Ngāhitara people into the harbour.
Please stay.
Whaitaitai called from beneath the waves. Although the Ngāhitara could not hear him, they did settle in the harbour, which they named Te Whanganuiatara, after their great ancestor. It was only when they were building their hilltop pa that they noticed the Taniwha trapped in the bay below them.
Help me.
Whaitaitai called, but the people knew there was no way they could free a Taniwha. Instead, they comforted him with the haunting melody of their flutes and their passionate waiata. Then one still and cloudless day, Whaitaitai suddenly felt the sand around him shudder and shift.
What is happening?
He cried anxiously as the sea swirled wildly and the harbour floor beneath him was thrust upwards by a giant earthquake. Lifted above the sea, Whaitaitai struggled without success to roll himself back into the water. His breath became laboured as exhaustion overcame him.
Okay.
He gasped and then lay still. From his body, a beautiful white bird flew up and alighted on the hilltop across from the Ngahitara Pā.
Awe!
Cried the spirit of Whaitaitai. His cry brought the Ngahitara people rushing from their pā just in time to see the spirit bird disappearing north towards the ancient homeland of Hawaii. As soon as it departed, a great wave carrying sand, rocks and driftwood crashed down upon the Taniwha's body, burying it forever. The Ngahitara people named that place Whaitaitai in his memory. Today, the harbour created by the Taniwha is also called Wellington, a name given to it by the Pakeha settlers. Many ships and boats sail in and out through the gap made by Ngākei, and somewhere beneath the land on which now stands an airport, sports fields, shops and houses, lies the bones of Whaitaitai. Maybe one day Ngākei will return to Wellington Harbour to search for his friend.